Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Can You Hear Me? I'm Rob Johnson, president of Rob Johnson Communications. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, everybody, and I'm Eileen Rochford, CEO of the marketing and strategy firm, The Harbinger Group. Today, we're going to talk about culture. So I'm an owner of a business. The agency is the Harbinger Group, as you know, and I'm very aware how important it is to build a team that responds to that culture that I'm trying to create. And the one that I strive for is one of collaboration, support, transparency as much as possible, and clear expectations. But I know this does not happen by accident. This has to be a really intentional process. And I also know that creating a culture, any culture, the one I just described or any other type, especially doing so with intention, is not easy. Frankly, it's been one of the hardest things that I've tackled in the 20 years that I've been running my little business. And that work just never ends, does it?
It doesn't. And the thing is, you've been walking that walk, and we thought, what a great topic to talk about. But since you're the co-host, we didn't want to just interview you about it because you have been walking that walk. Fortunately, though, we have a guest today who not only thinks about this issue all of the time, but trains leaders on it. Darcy Luoma is a master certified coach who's worked with 500 organizations across nearly 50 industries. And she is the co-author of Thoughtfully Fit, your training plan for life and business success. Now, on a personal note, she's completed 25 years of triathlons and is the mother of a 17 and 16-year-old. Darcy, welcome to Can You Hear Me? We're so grateful to have you.
Thank you, Rob and Eileen. It's just absolutely a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, listen, before we dive in, I think people would be interested to know how you became a certified coach, how you found this industry, how you found the need, and how you responded to
it. Yes. Do we have 5 hours?
That's right. Yes. We're gonna do an extended podcast today.
Yes, right. Well, I spent the first 20 years of my career working in politics and government and campaigns, and the most recent 12 of which I was running one of our U.S. Senator's office I lived in Madison, Wisconsin. And so when he announced he was going to retire, that's when I closed down his office on January 2nd, 2013. And on January 3rd, I officially launched my coaching and consulting firm because I'm just passionate. And what I found was every time I'd be in a meeting, whether it was with citizens or lobbyists or, an organization, and they'd be talking about Senate resolution or, Senate Bill 352 and debating it. And then they'd say, so Darcy, what does Senator Cole think about that? And I'd be like, oh, shoot. I was all thinking about the seating arrangements. I wonder if everybody was at the table, if more people would be talking, or if we did introductions, we haven't heard from her. I wonder why she doesn't feel comfortable or safe. And he keeps interrupting. I'd be thinking about the dynamics of the people in the room. And so it was just a no-brainer when I decided to switch careers to focus on creating high-performing people and teams.
How fascinating.
That is so fun.
Honestly, I wish we did have 5 hours because I personally want to hear all about those 25 triathlons. Hello.
No, that's 25 years.
Okay, so maybe it's like 100. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're amazing.
When we had our meeting and I was like, oh my gosh, congratulations on your 25 triathlon. She's like, Rob, it's 25
it's like 500.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, incredible.
You just don't know when to stop, it sounds like. That's pretty fun.
Well, I love it. And once you go and you're fit, like the worst thing is to have to lose it and start over. So I figured might as well just keep going and build on it.
That's so true. 100%. I've been there and felt that pain. So let's talk about talent. I want to kind of steer the subject there, Rob. How are we feeling about that subject?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So obviously I'm a business owner and lots of leaders are also business owners who listen to our show, and they know how important it is to acquire the best talent and to successfully assimilate them. But the reality is so many new employees are not going to end up being successful. Is that the case? Do we agree? And what do you think about that? What can be done?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it's hard enough, especially today, to find and hire talent. talent, let alone keep them. And even if you do, it's not enough. You need to not only train them individually to succeed in their role, but also look at the team dynamics, because the research shows that people don't leave jobs. They leave the culture. They leave a boss. They leave a toxic environment. And so left to its own device, it doesn't happen by itself any more than if you have a winning Super Bowl championship team. It's not made up of only the best players. That's one component, is bringing on the best players, but then training them not only individually, but also as a team is critical in order to reach that peak performance. And that's one thing. Some organizations do a good job at talent development and onboarding and training. Some are not as structured. It's very rare for an organization to spend as much time and energy training the team and looking at the culture and the team dynamics.
Darcy, I felt like a big component of the whole talent acquisition and retention piece really came to the fore during COVID, when all of a sudden the employees were starting to set the terms of how they wanted to work, where they wanted to work, how much they were willing to do that, and obviously they called some of the shots. We already talked about how it's not enough just to acquire the talent, but you need to retain them as well. Since COVID has sort of gone by the wayside, and people are trying to get people to come, and employers are trying to get their employees to come back into the office more frequently, are you seeing a shift in the way that things are kind of heading back toward the employer's wheelhouse, as it were, as opposed to the employees calling the shots? What do you see there?
I don't know if it'll ever fully go back. When you think about our parents' generation, where they had a job and they stayed there for decades and retired from there, that's just not the case right now. And certainly with the millennials and younger generation, but then also the Great Resignation and quiet quitting, and I can leave there and get a bonus and get a different job. And so is it shifting from what it was in COVID? Sure, of course. But I'm finding that the organizations that we work with are, instead of going back to what was before, they're embracing a new normal. And there's a lot who are saying, okay, we are going to maintain a hybrid work environment. We're going to give a lot of flexibility. We have one organization we work with where they have 1 week a month where everybody's in the office so that they can have meetings and they can have lunches and connection and water cooler discussion. And the other 3 weeks of the month, it's up to each individual team and employee and manager to decide whether they're in the office or hybrid or remote or on a client site. And so I think that the benefit of that is that not everybody works best being in an office from 8 to 5 and dealing with traffic and the overwhelm of trying to figure out what to do with the kids after school. They're home at 3, and how do you get them to activities? All of that is a huge challenge. And then layer on top of it, managers who say, I don't know how to manage if I don't know that somebody's at their desk. If they aren't coming in at 8 or 9 o'clock and staying till 5, I can't see that they're working. And it's like, okay, there's as you kicked it off with, Eileen, the culture you're trying to create is collaboration and trust and vulnerability and connection. That will trump any day somebody being able to see that you're sitting in your desk.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah. And we've been remote for 20 years.
Is that right?
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
She was a real trendsetter. She was way ahead of the curve.
Whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Can we stick on this topic for a second? Because I'd like to explore from where you sit, Darcy. How has culture taken a hit during this transition? We're going to just call it kind of a transition period, because that's what it has felt like for the past several years, right? It's something we're not accustomed to, but we're trying on and we're figuring out, and it's, working for a lot of companies. There's been some downsides. I'm curious how culture has taken a hit, and also maybe how cultures have strengthened through new approaches. Curious what you think.
Yes, and even based on the way you're asking the question, it's been both. And some organizations have taken a hit and haven't figured out how to strengthen the culture, and others have embraced it and said, okay, we're going to really create an environment where you can be thriving in your unique ability, whatever that looks like. So I think where the organizations that have cultures that are the strongest, they have managers and leaders who are intentionally designing an alliance with their team around around how the sort of the ground rules. What's the culture atmosphere that we want to create together? What personally will help you to thrive and flourish on this team? How do we want to be together when things get difficult, when we're disappointed? Because the reality is you will always have disagreements and frustrations and conflict if you're going to have people that's, whether it's in the workplace or with your kids or your marriage, that's our human nature, is that we're going to annoy each other and frustrate each other. What isn't common knowledge always is that the highest performing teams have a lot of conflict. They have a lot of disagreement. As a matter of fact, those where there's not a lot of conflict are the ones where I'm wondering and getting curious, because usually what that means is that there is not psychological safety to disagree, and that there isn't conflict because after the meeting, there's the post-meeting meeting where the real stuff is talked about. Yeah. And triangulation. So I think to answer your question, Eileen, those teams and organizations who have intentionally designed an alliance about how they want to create that culture are the ones who are really finding the best results.
Excellent. That's such a great answer. I love how you put that intentionally designing an alliance. I haven't even thought about that way.
Based on the way you asked the question, that was a very interesting way to get into it, I thought, as well. So, Darcy, we mentioned earlier, you are the co-author of Thoughtfully Fit. Would you explain, please, some of the key components of the Thoughtfully Fit model and why they are so significant to this idea of creating a winning culture?
Well, what I realized, Rob, was first triathlon I did was in 1998. My friend called me on a Thursday and said, "Hey, Darcy, I think we should do a triathlon this weekend." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Maybe if I had a year to train, but no. Well, she egged me on and she's like, "Oh, you don't think you can do it?" And, next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. on Sunday morning and I'm at the lakeshore getting ready to jump in and do my first triathlon. And it was a disaster. It was hard. I had to walk up the hills. It was called the Devil's Challenge, believe it or not. I came in last place and it was miserable, but I loved the energy of the people that were there and all the buzz of people who were wanting to be outside and be fit and healthy. And so I was hooked and I thought, okay, I know I can do better. And so I got a triathlon coach. I joined a multi-sport team. I bought a road bike. I went to master swim classes. I trained, I practiced. And wouldn't you know it, I got better. They got easier. And it wasn't because the courses were shorter or there were no hills. It was because I had trained and practiced. So fast forward, I started to notice that the thousands of clients I had worked with, they all come to coaching with similar problems. And so we took a couple of years and did a deep dive and categorized all of the challenges and problems that people would bring into our coaching sessions, whether they were leaders or teams. And we found that there are 6 main hurdles that get in the way of peak performance. And if leaders, teams, managers train and practice, they can clear those hurdles. They can perform better. And that's where Thoughtfully Fit came to life, because it's a model that says if you handle those challenges thoughtfully, you can clear those hurdles. Just like if you train and practice, whether it's a triathlon or a marathon or a basketball game or whatever it is, we want to be physically fit. And you asked for a key concept, just like if you want to be physically fit, if you train and build your core, every movement's going to be easier. You'll be less likely to get injured. The same is true with Thoughtfully Fit. There's a core and it's 3 simple steps. No matter what your challenge or obstacle is, you pause, think, and then act. And that will just slow it down enough to give you the ability to respond thoughtfully, to be strategic and intentional instead of reacting on autopilot and compulsively, hitting reply all in anger, or maybe silently stewing and getting resentful and not getting results. So that's how Thoughtfully Fit was created and the metaphor of how it came to be.
I mean, pausing and thinking. I mean, what concept, right, Eileen?
It seems so basic, but it's so critical. I mean, I even had a situation this morning where I received some unexpected information and it was an internal conversation. And my instinct was to solve. That was the first reaction.
To act. You wanted to act.
But I did. I wanted to solve it right then and there, get it off the list. And I had to force myself to pause, literally think it through. And I did verbally think it through, which I don't know if that's okay or not. But it did kind of buy me some time. So it's interesting. That instinct as a leader to solve is probably one of the big hurdles, I'm guessing, that you had mentioned there are 6, but who knows? Would you say it is?
Yes. I mean, if you are a strong leader, there is no way you could possibly solve every problem. It'd be, somebody comes to you and you're like, oh yeah, let me get my fire extinguisher and put that problem out. Oh, another one, let me put that out. And all of a sudden you've got all these fires going on and you cannot keep up ahead of them. You cannot solve all the problems. Not only can you not do it, you solving a problem that somebody else has all the background, the context, the relationships, the insights, you're not going to give as strong of an answer in most cases anyway, in a solution. So leaning into, in this case, we're talking about pausing and thinking, and yes, brilliant for you to think out loud. So it sounds like this is the situation. What have you already tried? What's hard about it? What do you think the best way forward is? What would happen? Would be the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? Right? By asking those questions and coaching the person, they can come up with their best solution. The more you do that, the more capacity your team has, the less they're coming to you to put out fires.
Yeah. And the more they learn. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I'm 52. I've been doing this for a long time with a lot of people, but that urge to do, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or a mother or what, but that urge to do and to help feels good, but it's not right. It's probably the worst possible thing that we can do as leaders.
Well, a couple things, so first of all, the more you practice that and strengthen that muscle of getting curious and asking questions, and holding the other person as capable, creative, and competent, the easier it gets and the less that urge to solve comes. And I'm saying that, Eileen, because I also had that urge. I loved to solve problems because it feels good and you want to help. I thought when I was managing Senator Cole's office, I thought that was my job, was to solve problems. But the problem was I had this revolving door all day long. I said, I've got an open door policy. Come to me. And they did multiple times a day.
You're like, what have I done?
Door was open.
The door was open. It never shut. So they come in, hey, Darcy, we got this angry constituent emailed and they didn't get their veterans check, whatever the problem of the hour was. And so I would do one of two things. I'd either read the email and be like, oh yeah, this is bad. Let me handle it. And I'd take the monkey on my back. Or I would say, oh yeah, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to call the constituent, tell them that we're going to draft a congressional inquiry to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Then I want you to call the secretary of the VA and blah, 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 blah. So they would leave. A day later, they'd come back and say, okay, I did what you asked, Darcy, but the secretary is out on vacation until next Tuesday. What should I do? And I was inadvertently creating this model of dependence that the more I solved problems, the more they came to me to solve their problems. And so at 5:00 at the end of the day, they all went home and I had this whole office full of monkeys that I was now caring and feeding for, right?
Yeah, you don't get to leave your monkey on my desk. I forget who came up with that, but yeah, I know that's a good one.
You know what you both talked about though, and Eileen, you dove in first, and then Darcy just kind of put a bow on it. It's the solving the problem, and everybody's, it feels good to solve a problem, and in doing so, you were talking about dependence, Darcy, and all of a sudden you do the thinking for them, and we're sitting here, big picture here, talking about a winning culture, right? But what if you solve everybody's problem and they don't have to think for themselves and they don't have to come up with creative solutions for themselves? Are you really creating that? And I think you both absolutely nailed it just then, because you're basically saying, if I go, the monkey's on my back, I solve the problem, and in the meantime, I didn't make them come up with creative problem solving.
100%. And also in the meantime, I or Eileen or whoever manager we're talking about, who is like super mom, super woman, super person solving all these problems, is exhausted and it's not sustainable.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. I was just sent a reminder from a woman who's the facilitator of I'm in chief, and this it's our core group, and we meet once a month. And she sent something out to all of us today saying this week and this season is about joy. It's not about solving everyone's problems. And she's like, this is what we do as women. And there was an entire, I wouldn't call it a poem. It was kind of a reflection on that. And it was great. It was an awesome reminder. My kids are older now, so that tendency to, be in that mindset is much less than it used to be. But there's so many people I work with who are, mired in that still. And it's a tough role to avoid.
It is tough. And I just want to commend you, Eileen, for even naming it, that this morning, got a problem and I just wanted to solve it, because of course we do. You are human. That's what we do. And that comes from a place of heart and compassion and wanting to do good and wanting to help and resisting that urge, and instead jumping in, pausing and thinking, okay, asking some questions, taking a coach approach, being thoughtful in how you can help that person gain the skills and knowledge and confidence to solve the problem on their own. It does pay off in the long term, not only in, you not being as exhausted and overwhelmed, but in building a winning culture where each person is more capable and competent to solve lots more problems.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice. I think we have the time to do this, Rob, and I'd really like to if we can. You mentioned 6 hurdles and you left me really wanting to know, gosh, what are they? Those themes that came out that you pulled through when you did the deep dive. And I would love to connect that to, I guess, themes, and this is covered in the book too, that get in the way of a winning culture and high performing teams. So I'm sure the hurdles have everything to do with it. There's a connection there, I'm guessing. Maybe.
There is. Absolutely. So you want me to start with the hurdles?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Perfect. So first hurdle, 3 of them are internal, where we get in our own way. 3 of them are external, where we have challenges with other people. So first one, internal stillness. It's quieting the mind. So clients would come in and say, oh my God, I have so much to do, I can't even think. And going from one meeting to dropping the kids off at soccer to listening to NPR to, just like if you want peak performance physically, you have to give your body the opportunity to rest. You would never lift weights on the same body part 2 days in a row, you get injured. In the same way, that's a hurdle of people not being able to set boundaries, to say no, to create space for stillness. Want me to go on a second?
Yes. I'd like to sit in stillness for a second. I think you should.
Exactly. Yes. Second hurdle is not handling yourself the way you'd like. So this is all about, that's the thoughtfully fit practice of strength. Strength is being able to consciously choose how you show up in any situation. Sometimes that requires a heavy lift. It means that when you get home from a long day, a crazy afternoon, you're in traffic and you pull in the garage and you open the door to the kitchen and you stumble over backpacks and shoes, instead of being like, oh my God, really? You pause in that moment and think, how do I want to show up? And it is a heavy lift to be able to consciously choose how you want to act in that moment. And it can make the entire rest of the evening shift from, really guys, yelling to, hey guys, come on over. Can you pick up your stuff, put it in the mudroom? And then I want to hear how your day was. It can be that slight and it can make a huge impact. And then the third is getting stuck. So clients would come in stuck with a problem they don't know how to solve, stuck in a relationship, all sorts of places that people would come into coaching feeling stuck. So this is the thoughtfully fit practice of endurance. And that's being able to overcome obstacles, being able to embrace a growth mindset, to be able to move through and get unstuck. And then the 3 external. So first one is, I'd be fine if only you were different. I can't tell you how many times people come in. Okay, Darcy, here's what I want to focus on today. I want to figure out, how can we change Rob? Well, Rob,
Speaking
please.
Of hours. Oh my God, we wouldn't have time for that one.
I think that like once a week.
So this is the practice of flexibility, which is being able to stretch to accept others just as they are, because we can't change Rob. Rob is beautiful and brilliant just as he is. And he's got quirks that are going to be annoying. And so this is really about being able to stretch to accept someone just as they are, instead of wasting energy trying to change them or fix them or get them to be the way you think they should be. Yeah,
that's so hard for people.
So hard.
That's so human nature. And it's like, I've kind of been doing this, not that it's okay, because I do have some self-awareness, or we all do, some of us do, but it's like, I don't know, am I really going to change that? Is that something that I'm going to change at my advanced age now?
Shut it.
Maybe not.
Exactly. So 2 more external hurdles. Next one is when relationships are in conflict. So this is the thoughtfully fit practice of balance, which is achieving alignment, being able to balance what do you want and need with what I want and need. So finding the win-win in the relationship instead of I'm going to fight and win and you lose, or it's okay, I'll just acquiesce. I don't need to say something and then I lose and you win. Those relationships that are out of balance are not sustainable for the long term. And then the final one is reacting poorly when blindsided. So clients would come into coaching saying, oh God, Darcy, I need to coach around. We had a board meeting yesterday and somebody called me out and they blamed me and I blew up and I got defensive. Being able to instead have the agility, this is the practice of agility, to respond thoughtfully instead of having that knee-jerk, unconscious autopilot response in the moment. That oftentimes gets us in trouble and then you have to go back and clean up the mess from how you reacted in the first place.
So number 6, I have a quick follow-up. Do you have just one tip or how you can handle that kind of a situation, being blindsided specifically?
Absolutely. Go back to the core, engage your core, take a pause for a moment, take a beat, take a breath. That pause will kick you off of autopilot. I do something when I'm doing group presentations or keynotes, the pause pinch, where I've got a Band-Aid on my thumb here or my finger. You
I thought that was metaphorical and literal.
There's an actual Band-Aid on her finger. Listeners.
I know there is.
I cut myself cutting vegetables today. Pinch the webbing between the thumb and forefinger. And when you do that, just take a breath and count to 3. That can get you to slow down, to not react. And then in that moment, think, how do I want to show up? What can I do right now that I won't regret later? What can neutralize the situation? Ask yourself some questions so that you can create some new awareness and then act thoughtfully. It sounds so simple, as you said at the top of the show here, but it's not easy. And so the tip I have is practice on the small stuff so that you have a strong core when it gets to be the really big, hard stuff.
That's awesome. I'm totally going to do that. I have it highlighted in bold here in my show notes. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Listen, this information was incredible. I mean, all these great ideas and all the things, the mindfulness that you bring to all this, Darcy, is just superb. And Eileen, you mentioned show notes. So we're going to obviously have a lot of this in show notes, but for those people that would like to reach out to you directly or even to buy the book, how do people go about doing that in the most efficient way?
Thank you so much. So darcyluoma.com is my email or my website. It's got all the social channels and LinkedIn and all of that. There's a link there to buy the book, or you can do it in Audible or Amazon, anywhere. And if anyone's curious what their biggest hurdle is, thoughtfullyfit.com is a quiz. There's a 2-minute quiz where you can take answer the questions, and it'll tell you which of those 6 is your biggest hurdle. And then it'll give you a strategy to start to train to overcome that.
Fantastic. I am totally buying your book. I mean, that's like,
I'd love to hear what you think if you read it.
I will. Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you. I think our listeners are going to be real excited about it.
Thank you.
It is.
Okay. So in the show notes, we're going to include a bunch of tips and links to what did you call it? I wouldn't call it a quiz, but an assessment perhaps. Yeah. Okay. So nice assessment. That's a great freebie. Everybody who's listening should take advantage of that. And I started to read the reviews of the book ahead of you being on here. But now I'm buying that darn thing. Like I said, can't wait.
Absolutely. Me too.
Well, I just want to thank you for being with us today and thank Rob for bringing you on as a guest. I'm delighted to have met you and really interested in learning more through your book. And I know there's lots of other content that you put out. So I'll be an avid fan from here on out.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me. I mean, what a great conversation. You guys make it so fun and easy.
Oh, good. We try not to be boring. That's one of my goals.
Well, try not to. And it helps when we have guests like Darcy to help us with some really, really great advice. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor.